Were you the highest ranking member of the AB to actually turn at that point?
Yes. At any point.
At any point?
Yes.
Okay. And with that, you are now giving them information about how the organization functions and the inner workings and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So did that start to kind of tear down the Aryan Brotherhood and their influence, around the country?
It did. I mean, obviously, whenever you give up the information relative to the infrastructure, the inner workings, even codes, if you will, to carry out escape attempts and just the activities of the organization. So yes, it required that they restructure.
Okay, and there was this one case you testified as a witness where I guess they had to sneak you in like a hollowed out vending machine?
Yeah, that was the Margot Compton case. That was two Hell's Angel members that had killed Margot Compton, her two 6-year-old twin daughters. They wrapped their arms around these little girls' teddy bear and capped them in the head while they made Margot watch, and then they capped her in the head. They'd previously shot her boyfriend on the couch in the head. They did this because she testified against Buck Garrett, who was the second in command of the Hells Angels, for a pimping and pandering case. He got 4 years for that. He would have done half of that. But the feds, she testified for the feds. They hit her out in Oregon, but she contacted her connection here in the city. And, the city is an HA stronghold. So the connection gave up her location. Buck Garrett sent 2 shooters up there. So I testified against Buck Garrett and I testified against one of the shooters. They were both convicted. But the courthouse at that time was, full of HA. And there were, I'll just call them rumors, that they'd found out which transportation car I was on, so they planted a bomb on that, so they switched transportation cars. They put me in a substation. Now this I know to be a fact, at least. And at one point, one of the deputies brought a Polaroid to me and showed me an individual, and I identified him. So they x-rayed him and found that he had a .25 auto keistered, and his assignment was to assassinate me in the substation. And then the other one, perhaps the most bizarre one, was that an individual dressed as a priest was attempting to snipe me from a building outside the courtroom. So with that in mind, they hollowed out a vending machine and stuck me in it and ran me into the courthouse.
Well, I think in 1985, you testified against Joseph Michael O'Rourke?
Yeah, Joe O'Rourke, little Joe O'Rourke, yes.
Okay, and that was over a murder of Ricky Helt.
Yes.
And I guess it was part of a dispute about basically stealing drugs from O'Rourke's girlfriend?
Yes.
And you cooperated in that trial as well?
Yes.
And I guess on the stand, that's when you kind of talked about the inner workings of the Aryan Brotherhood and everything else like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but even with your testimony, he ended up getting found not guilty?
Yes.
Okay, because I guess there was still a reasonable doubt in the whole situation.
Yeah, I think so, and I can see why. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, they had a pretty good jury. The jury foreman was an attorney. That can go either way for you. But, my position is that I'm not a witness for the prosecution or the defense. I talk to both. When they send investigators to me, I talk to both. When I take the stand, my position is I'm there to tell what I know and only that. I'm not advocating for the prosecution or the defense. So, and that was the case with little Joe O'Rourke. I went into court, I took the stand, I told what I knew, and left it at that.
Well, I mean, this whole time when you're cooperating, you're still in prison.
Yes.
The entire time.
Yes.
So as you're going through all this, how are they really keeping you safe while you're locked up?
Well, they're not really worried about that. I mean, that's a misnomer, perhaps. I mean, at one time in the unit, they have special housing units. I was in a restricted housing unit. There was only, I think, four or five of us in there. It was a highly secure unit. They would fly in a helicopter, put you on the helicopter, fly you out to court, that type thing. But, whether or not you're safe, that's anyone's guess. anybody can be had. I don't care who you are.
Well, but are they keeping you in protective custody this whole time?
No, not at that time. It wasn't protective custody. It was called a restricted housing unit. So eventually I did end up in protective housing in Corcoran. That's where I was with Charlie Manson and Sirhan and others. But at that time, no, I was out to court probably 3 years.